On a mild autumn afternoon along a windswept coastal highway, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm amber glow over the rolling dunes and rugged cliffs that bordered the narrow road. Gavin Blackwell, a sharply dressed man in his early 40s, had just pulled his sleek black sedan to the side after noticing a flat tire. As he stepped out, the sound of his polished leather shoes on the gravel mixed with the murmur of the ocean in the distance. His meticulously styled hair caught the fading sunlight, and he exhaled sharply in exasperation as he surveyed the damage. "Of all the days for a flat," he muttered, his voice heavy with disbelief. He fumbled for his phone, only to find it unresponsive, the screen displaying the dreaded "no service" message. Frustrated, Gavin tossed the device onto the passenger seat and leaned against his car, staring down the seemingly endless stretch of empty coastal road. Not long after, the sound of an approaching engine interrupted the quiet. Gavin turned to see an aging, rusted pickup truck ambling toward him. The driver's side window rolled down to reveal a determined young woman with chestnut hair tied back in a loose bun. "Need some help?" she called out, her tone both friendly and confident. Gavin straightened up, his urban skepticism rising as he replied, "Yes, actually. Do you happen to have a spare tire or any tools? My jack doesn't seem to be working." The woman, whose name was Lila Anderson, parked her weathered truck with an ease that betrayed years of experience on the road. Wearing faded denim jeans and a grease-stained t-shirt, with scuffed but sturdy boots, she hopped out gracefully. "Lucky for you, I always come prepared," she said with a roguish grin as she retrieved a well-worn toolbox from the truck bed. Gavin hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure it's not a simple fix?" he asked, trying to mask his doubt. Lila raised an amused eyebrow, her bright hazel eyes sparkling as she replied, "Let me guess. You think I don't know what I'm doing?" "Not at all," Gavin quickly reassured her, though his tone revealed his internal skepticism. "Just making sure." With that, Lila knelt beside the flat tire and set to work with a practiced precision. Within moments, she had secured the spare tire and properly positioned the jack. "Looks like you ran over something sharp," she noted, inspecting the ruined tire. "This one's beyond repair, but your spare seems to be in fine shape. You really know your stuff." Gavin crossed his arms and leaned casually against his car, his initial reservations softening. "Don't sound so surprised," Lila replied with a playful smirk. "Not everyone needs a roadside assistance service to survive." Despite himself, Gavin chuckled as he watched her expertly tighten the lug nuts. In that moment, he couldn't help but study her with a growing sense of admiration. She was nothing like the polished, reticent figures he was accustomed to in his high-powered business circles, a spontaneous, no-nonsense spirit on an otherwise ordinary road. When Lila finally stood up and wiped her hands on a rag that had seen better days, she said, "All set, right?" Gavin reached for his wallet and pulled out a crisp bill. "Let me pay you for your help," he offered. Lila waved his money away, laughing lightly. "Keep your cash. I was just lending a hand to a fellow traveler." Surprised, Gavin asked, "Really?" With a modest shrug and a sparkle in her eyes, Lila replied, "Just doing what I do. But next time, maybe invest in a better jack." Gavin grinned, and as she climbed back into her battered pickup, he called out, "Wait! Can I at least treat you to dinner? It's the least I can do." Lila paused with one hand on the steering wheel, then smiled ruefully. "Thanks, but I have a busy night ahead. Take care, city boy." With that, she drove off, leaving Gavin standing by his car. As the distant rumble of her truck faded into the sound of crashing waves, he found himself captivated by the image of this confident, down-to-earth woman who had appeared unexpectedly to rescue him. The memory of her calm determination and cheerful banter lingered long after she was gone, stirring something inside him he hadn't felt in years. Gavin climbed back into his sedan and restarted the engine, but even as he merged onto the main coastal highway, his thoughts kept drifting back to Lila Anderson. The memory of her capable hands and genuine smile clung to him like the salty breeze along the shoreline. Unable to shake the image of the unpretentious, strong-willed young woman who had appeared like a guardian angel, he resolved to see her again, to learn more about the person behind that grease-stained uniform. That same evening, the fading hues of the sunset painted the sky in golden tones as Gavin, unable to put the encounter out of his mind, spotted Lila's pickup pulling into a quaint, weathered diner tucked away in a small seaside town. On impulse, he slowed down and parked in the lot, determined not to let her vanish into obscurity. Inside, the diner buzzed with the hum of quiet conversations and the clatter of cutlery on plates. Lila was seated at the counter, her auburn hair catching the warm glow of the overhead lights as she sipped coffee from a chipped mug and perused a well-worn repair manual. Her presence was refreshingly unassuming, a stark contrast to the sterile, impersonal offices Gavin was used to. Approaching cautiously, Gavin cleared his throat. "I thought you said you had a lot on your plate tonight." Lila looked up, momentarily startled, before her expression softened into a wry smile. "I did, but I didn't think city types would show up at a place like this," she teased lightly. "I owe you one," Gavin admitted, extending his hand in mock surrender. "Let me treat you to dinner. I'm not as high minimum as I look, and I promise, no fancy restaurants, just good food and genuine conversation." Lila's smile deepened as she gestured to the stool beside her. "All right, city boy, have a seat." They ordered a round of hearty burgers, crispy fries, and classic milkshakes. As they waited for their meals, the conversation began to flow naturally. "So, what brings you out here?" Lila asked, leaning forward with curiosity. Gavin explained that he was en route to an important meeting in the city, but his unexpected roadside mishap had led him astray. "And you?" he pressed gently. Lila's eyes lit up as she described working at her father's modest auto repair shop, a place she'd helped run since she was a teenager. "I've been around engines and oil stains for as long as I can remember," she said with a laugh. "It's not glamorous, but it's honest work." Gavin listened intently, the contrast between his world of boardrooms and skyscrapers and Lila's down-to-earth reality becoming ever more apparent. "I'm in business," he replied evasively. "In tech and investments mostly." Lila arched an eyebrow, a teasing glimmer in her gaze. "Tech, huh? Sounds like a lot of boring meetings and endless emails." Gavin chuckled, conceding the point. "You could say that, but sometimes even I need a change of pace. Meeting you is the most refreshing break I've had in a long while." Lila's smile softened, and as they continued to share stories over their meal, a tentative bond began to form. A connection built on mutual respect and an unexpected kinship. After dinner, as the neon sign of the diner flickered to life against the encroaching dusk, Gavin walked Lila to her truck. "Thanks again for helping me out earlier," he said earnestly. "I owe you more than just a meal." Lila shrugged, her tone playful yet sincere. "Just helping out a fellow traveler," she repeated. "But any chance I see you again, don't be a stranger." Gavin lingered, his eyes searching hers. "I promise, I'll be around." With one last exchanged smile, Lila climbed into her truck and drove off, leaving Gavin standing in the dim light, the memory of their brief encounter etched into his heart. Back in his sleek city apartment high above the bustling metropolis, Gavin's thoughts were consumed by Lila. Surrounded by the trappings of wealth, a modern penthouse with panoramic views of the skyline, he couldn't shake the image of the spirited, grease-smeared mechanic's daughter who had captured his attention. In the boardroom the following day, as he negotiated a multi-million-dollar deal with a steely resolve, his mind kept drifting back to the quiet dignity of that coastal road and the sincerity in Lila's eyes. Though his life was filled with meetings, calls, and deadlines, nothing seemed to matter as much as finding a connection that transcended wealth and status. Unable to ignore his growing longing, Gavin found himself compelled to seek out Lila once more. He recalled overhearing a mention of her family's repair shop during their dinner, a humble establishment that had been a cornerstone of the small seaside town. Determined to return to the place where he'd felt a spark of something genuine, Gavin commandeered a modest rental sedan to blend in with the local traffic, leaving behind the ostentatious trappings of his usual life. Navigating the narrow streets of the quaint town, Gavin eventually arrived at a small building bearing the faded sign, Anderson's Auto Repair. The establishment, though modest and unpretentious, exuded a comforting sense of community and hard work. The faint smell of oil and metal greeted him as he stepped inside. There, half hidden under the hood of an aging truck, was Lila. Her auburn hair now loosely tied with a bandana, her focus entirely on coaxing life from a stubborn engine. Gavin hesitated at the threshold, unsure if he should disturb her work. Gathering his courage, he cleared his throat softly. "We seem to keep meeting under the hoods of these cars," he said, his voice a mix of nervousness and earnestness. Lila slowly looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to guarded curiosity. "Gavin," she acknowledged, her tone cautious yet familiar. "What brings you here?" He smiled sheepishly. "I wanted to thank you properly. You helped me when I was stranded, and I haven't been able to shake the thought of that day. I just wanted to see you again, beyond the roadside encounter." Lila's eyes narrowed slightly as she studied him. "You're not exactly blending in here, you know," she said with a half smile, nodding to the sleek contrast of his rented sedan against the backdrop of the humble repair shop. "City folks don't usually show up in these parts wearing shoes that cost more than my rent," Gavin chuckled softly, acknowledging the truth in her words. "I guess I'm not used to this pace, or to a place where people really know each other," he admitted. I needed to be around you again." Their conversation grew more intimate as they moved from the cluttered workshop to a nearby cafe, where they settled into a quiet corner with steaming mugs of coffee and a plate of homemade cookies. There, amidst the soft murmur of local patrons and the clinking of cutlery, Gavin and Lila shared fragments of their lives. Lila spoke of growing up in the town, of long days spent helping her father at the repair shop, and nights spent dreaming of far-off places, like the winding streets of old European cities. Gavin, in turn, recounted tales of the bustling city, of boardrooms filled with ruthless ambition, and of a life where every handshake and every business deal felt like a performance. As the conversation deepened, Gavin's facade of polished detachment slowly began to crumble. "You know," he admitted quietly, "I spend so much time chasing success that I forget what it means to live. There's something incredibly refreshing about the way you see the world, a simplicity and authenticity that I've rarely encountered." Lila's eyes softened as she regarded him, and for a moment, the barriers between them seemed to vanish. "Maybe you just need a different perspective," she replied with a gentle smile. "Sometimes, the most meaningful connections are found in the simplest moments." As the evening wore on, they strolled along the waterfront, the town's lights reflecting off the rippling surface of the harbor. The salty air mingled with their laughter, and for a brief while, Gavin forgot the pressures of his high-stakes life. Yet, as the night deepened, the specter of reality began to intrude. Back in the city, Gavin's reputation as the head of Blackwell Enterprises loomed large. A world of skyscrapers, relentless board meetings, and the constant scrutiny of high-powered investors. The dissonance between that world and the humble, heartfelt life of Lila Anderson was growing ever more apparent. Days later, as Gavin's work continued to pull him back into the relentless rhythm of corporate life, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Amid endless meetings and towering ambitions, the memory of Lila's honest smile and unguarded laughter became a beacon of hope. One evening, as he sat in his office reviewing reports and negotiating deals, a news broadcast flashed across the screen. The anchor announced, "Blackwell Enterprises CEO Gavin Blackwell has secured a major acquisition today, further cementing his position among the nation's elite entrepreneurs." Gavin's eyes drifted to the screen, his thoughts abruptly interrupted by the image of a familiar face. The face of Lila Anderson, unexpectedly captured in a candid shot next to a local diner on the town's news segment. Her expression, a mix of determination and surprise, sent a chill down his spine. The revelation struck him like a sudden gust of wind. Lila was not merely the unassuming helper he had met on that lonely coastal road, but a woman whose identity and integrity held far greater meaning than he had imagined. Later that week, driven by an inexplicable need for answers, Gavin found himself on the familiar winding roads leading to the small seaside town once more. This time, he resolved to uncover the truth behind Lila's unyielding spirit and her deep connection to her community. In the heart of the town, Gavin's search led him to a modest building bearing the sign Anderson Auto Repair. The structure, though weathered and humble, was a testament to years of hard work and resilience, a stark contrast to the opulent corporate headquarters he was accustomed to. As he stepped inside, the scent of motor oil and the sound of clanging metal enveloped him, drawing him into a world where time seemed to slow down. There, amidst scattered tools and well-worn machinery, he found Lila, her focus unbroken as she worked on a stubborn engine. "Lila," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. I came back because I needed to understand." She looked up, her eyes reflecting both surprise and caution. "Understand what, Gavin?" she asked. Her tone steady but laced with uncertainty. "Everything," he replied, his voice earnest and vulnerable. "I realized that I'd been living behind a carefully constructed facade, one that shields me from the real world, and from you." Lila set down her tools and studied him for a long moment. "You're not exactly built for this life," she said finally. "Your world is so different from ours." Gavin's expression hardened slightly with regret. "I know," he admitted, "but that's precisely why I need to change. I want to be seen for who I really am, not just for the wealth or the power I wield." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord in Lila, and she allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. "Maybe you need to learn that trust isn't built on money or status," she said quietly. "It's built on honesty, on the willingness to share your true self, flaws and all." Gavin nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his past mistakes and the possibility of redemption. "I've spent so much of my life trying to protect myself from being hurt that I ended up hurting the one person who made me feel alive," he confessed. "I need to fix that, if you'll let me." Over the next several days, Gavin and Lila embarked on a journey of reconciliation and rediscovery. Together, they brainstormed ideas to help revitalize the struggling repair shop, a project that would not only honor the legacy of Lila's father, but also serve as a bridge between their disparate worlds. Gavin, with his extensive resources and business acumen, offered to invest in the shop's modernization, while Lila provided the hands-on expertise that had been passed down through generations. "Let's do this as equals," Lila declared one afternoon, a spark of defiance lighting her eyes. "I want to run this place with integrity, and I won't have anyone telling me how to do it." Gavin's admiration for her strength only grew. "Then we'll work together. No strings attached. Just a partnership built on trust and mutual respect," he promised. As the project unfolded, their partnership began to mend the fractures in both their lives. Gavin attended board meetings at his company with a newfound conviction, even as some members of the board criticized his involvement with what they considered a minor local enterprise. "Your focus is being diverted," one stern board member argued during a heated meeting. "Your personal choices are attracting unwanted scrutiny." Gavin stood his ground, his voice unwavering. "If helping a community and supporting someone I care about damages my reputation, then perhaps I must reconsider what truly matters." His resolute stance forced the skeptical board members to reconsider, and soon news of his ethical initiatives began to spread, casting his company in a surprisingly positive light, and garnering support from investors who valued integrity over profit margins. Meanwhile, in the small town, the revival of Anderson Auto Repair had become a beacon of hope. Loyal customers who had once drifted away in the wake of unethical competition began returning in droves. The local community, always fiercely protective of its heritage, rallied behind Lila and her father's struggling business. "It's like the whole town is rooting for us," her father remarked one evening, his voice thick with emotion. "We're not just fixing cars here, we're mending a legacy." Lila, though overwhelmed by the sudden surge of support, maintained her characteristic resolve. Yet in quiet moments, she couldn't help but wonder about Gavin, about the man who had ventured from a world of glamour and corporate ambition into the heart of her simple existence. One crisp morning, after weeks of working side by side to transform the repair shop into a modern, yet authentically rustic hub of activity, Lila decided it was time to confront her growing feelings and lingering doubts. Gavin had been unusually silent lately, and the distance between them was palpable. Determined to bridge that gap, she arranged to meet him at a secluded lookout point overlooking the town and the endless expanse of the ocean beyond. As they sat together on a weathered bench, the cool breeze ruffling their hair, Lila broke the silence. "You know, I'm still trying to understand why you felt you had to hide who you are," she said softly. "When we first met, I never imagined you'd be anything but genuine." Gavin's eyes, clouded with regret, met hers. "I was afraid," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "Afraid that if you knew the real me, the man behind the wealth and the power, you wouldn't care." Lila's gaze softened with empathy. "Gavin, Trust isn't something you build by hiding behind facades. It's built on sharing your vulnerabilities. I want to know you, the real you, even if that means confronting imperfections. That heartfelt conversation marked the beginning of a slow, painful, but ultimately healing process. Gavin began to share more openly about his life in the city, the pressures of his corporate world, and the loneliness that came with constant expectations. In return, Lila revealed her dreams of one day traveling, of exploring places beyond the confines of the small town, and of a life where hard work and family values reigned supreme. Their discussions, often held over late-night cups of coffee in the quiet of the repair shop, revealed that beneath the differences in their backgrounds lay a shared desire for authenticity and connection. As the days turned into weeks, Gavin's transformation extended beyond his personal life. Behind the scenes, he discreetly set in motion a plan to counteract the unethical practices of a rival auto repair business that had been tarnishing the reputation of small-town enterprises. With the help of trusted investigators, Gavin uncovered a web of fraudulent contracts, tax evasion, and underhanded tactics that had undermined the local economy. Once the evidence was compiled, he ensured that it was handed over to the appropriate authorities, leading to the swift shutdown of the rival operation. The scandal, when it broke out in the local newspapers, not only vindicated Lila's business, but also painted Gavin in a new, more honorable light. "I never expected you to get so involved," Lila remarked one afternoon as they reviewed the positive media coverage together. Gavin merely shrugged, his eyes alight with determination. "Sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks. I can't stand by and watch a community suffer." News of his actions soon spread through the town and even reached the ears of his company's board members. At the next high-stakes meeting, one of the once critical board members reluctantly admitted, "Your actions have brought more goodwill and positive media attention than we anticipated. Perhaps we misjudged your intentions." Gavin's measured response silenced the remaining doubts. "This isn't about publicity," he stated firmly. "It's about integrity and doing what's right." Though the corporate battle was far from over, Gavin knew that his commitment to ethical business practices had begun to reshape the company's values. An outcome that would benefit not only him, but the broader community as well. One day, as the transformed repair shop buzzed with renewed energy and hope, Gavin drove back to the small town with a sense of anticipation that made his heart race. The building now stood, renovated. A charming blend of modern efficiency and nostalgic character, its windows gleaming in the soft morning light. Inside, Lila was busy organizing the new tools and equipment, her focus unwavering, despite the flurry of activity around her. When she looked up and saw Gavin stepping out of his car, a mixture of surprise and delight crossed her face. "City boy," she teased, wiping her hands on a faded pair of jeans. "I didn't expect to see you here again." Gavin grinned, his eyes full of warmth. "I thought I'd drop by and check on the place. And, of course, on you." After a moment of light banter, Gavin's expression grew more serious. Reaching into his pocket, he withdrew a small, elegantly crafted box and slowly opened it to reveal a modest ring. Simple, yet imbued with profound meaning. "Lila," he began, his voice trembling with sincerity despite the calm he tried to project. "You've helped me fix more than just a flat tire. You've shown me the value of integrity, hard work, and love, and that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can change everything. Will you let me be part of your journey, not just as a business partner, but as someone who truly cares about you?" For a long, suspended moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Lila's eyes widened, and then, slowly, a tender smile spread across her face. "Only if we remain equals in every way," she replied softly, her tone both playful and earnest. Gavin laughed, relieved and overjoyed, and gently slipped the ring onto her finger. Outside, a small crowd of loyal customers and neighbors who had gathered to witness the transformation of their community erupted in cheers. The celebration that followed was one of genuine joy and communal pride, a lively festival marked by string lights, homemade food, and the simple pleasure of shared hope. That night, as the stars began to twinkle above the modest repair shop, Gavin and Lila stood side by side on the porch, their shoulders brushing in a silent promise of unity. "I never imagined that a broken tire would lead to all this," Lila murmured, her voice filled with wonder. Gavin's smile was soft yet resolute as he replied, "Sometimes, the simplest moments hold the greatest power. I'm just grateful that fate brought us together." As the music played and the laughter of friends and family filled the night air, they danced beneath the starlit sky, a symbol of a new beginning, built on trust, love, and the courage to be vulnerable. In the weeks and months that followed, Gavin and Lila continued to nurture both their personal relationship and their joint venture. Their collaboration not only revitalized Anderson Auto Repair, but also served as a catalyst for broader change in the community. Gavin's company began to embrace a more ethical, community-focused approach, aligning itself with local values and inspiring other businesses to follow suit, even as challenges arose. Critics from his former corporate circle and the ever-present pressures of high-stakes business, Gavin's resolve remained unshaken. "If my work here has taught me anything," he often reflected, "it's that true success is measured not by the size of your bank account, but by the strength of your character and the impact you have on the lives of those around you." For Lila, the journey was both exhilarating and humbling. She had grown up in a town where everyone knew everyone else, where loyalty and community were the currency of everyday life. Yet the arrival of a man from a world so different from her own had challenged her preconceptions. Slowly, she began to see that Gavin was not the aloof, unapproachable tycoon he had once seemed, but a man with his own vulnerabilities, a man who, beneath the polished surface, craved connection and redemption. "You've got a lot to learn about trust," she once teased, as they sat together in the quiet after a long day's work. Gavin grinned back, his eyes reflecting both regret for past missteps and hope for the future. "Maybe you can teach me," he replied, his tone earnest. Their days were filled with the steady hum of activity at the repair shop, tools clanging, engines revving, and the friendly chatter of customers, and punctuated by moments of quiet reflection. They visited local landmarks together, a weathered bookstore where Lila had spent countless afternoons lost in novels, a scenic overlook where the crashing waves met the rugged cliffs, and a small park that held memories of her childhood. With each shared moment, the gap between their worlds narrowed, and the simple beauty of everyday life became a testament to the power of genuine connection. Yet, as their relationship deepened, so too did the challenges. Gavin's involvement with the small-town venture began to unsettle some members of his company's board. In one particularly tense meeting, a board member's critical tone cut through the air. "Your personal choices are distracting you from your responsibilities. Your focus should be on growing our empire, not on this local project." Gavin met the challenge head-on, his voice steady and resolute. "If helping communities like this damages my reputation, then I'd rather lose a few deals than lose my integrity," he declared. His unwavering stance forced even the most skeptical board members to reconsider, and slowly, the tide of opinion began to turn. Investors, once wary of his unconventional methods, started to appreciate the ethical dimensions of his decisions, and soon, positive media coverage further bolstered his company's standing. Back in the small town, the revival of Anderson Auto Repair became a symbol of hope and resilience. Customers returned, neighbors offered their support, and Lila's father, who had once harbored doubts about the future, now beamed with pride. "This place isn't just a garage anymore," he remarked one evening as he watched his daughter work with a determined smile. "It's a testament to what can happen when people come together." Lila, despite the pressures and challenges of balancing her own dreams with family responsibilities, found solace in the community's embrace, and in the quiet, steadfast presence of Gavin, who had chosen to fight for something real, something that transcended the superficial trappings of wealth and power. One crisp winter morning, as the first hints of frost clung to the edges of the coastal town, Gavin found himself once again drawn to the repair shop. Today, however, he came with a purpose beyond business or personal redemption. With the confidence born of shared triumphs and the warmth of genuine affection lighting his eyes, he stepped up to Lila, who was busy repairing a vintage car in the glow of the rising sun. "Lila," he began, his voice gentle yet resolute, "I know I haven't always been honest about who I am, and I'm sorry for the pain that caused. I've been so afraid of being judged for my past, but you've shown me that the truth, however imperfect, is worth more than any facade. Lila paused, wiping her hands on a rag as she regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and hope. "You've got a lot of explaining to do, Gavin," she said softly, her tone both teasing and serious. "But I'm willing to listen, if you're willing to be completely open." Gavin nodded, feeling the weight of years of guarded secrets begin to lift. "I was scared of losing you," he admitted. "I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for what I have. And in doing so, I ended up deceiving you and myself." His words hung in the air, heavy with regret and longing. Lila reached out, her hand gently covering his. "We all have our fears," she murmured. "What matters is that we learn from them and move forward together." In the following weeks, their conversations grew more honest and raw, each revelation a step toward healing old wounds and building new bridges. Gavin gradually introduced Lila to aspects of his life in the city, inviting her to board meetings and social events where, much to everyone's surprise, she held her own with a refreshing authenticity. In turn, Lila shared with him the unspoken values of her small town. A world where success was measured not by bank balances, but by the strength of community bonds and the courage to pursue one's dreams despite adversity. Their shared journey culminated one brisk evening when, amid a celebration at the newly revamped Anderson Auto Repair, Gavin finally decided to lay bare his deepest feelings. Surrounded by friends, family, and loyal customers whose cheers filled the air with unbridled joy, he took Lila's hand and looked into her eyes. "You've shown me that sometimes. The most extraordinary stories are born from the simplest moments," he declared, his voice trembling with emotion. "I may come from a world of boardrooms and skyscrapers, but with you, I've found a truth that money can't buy. A truth of love, trust, and the beauty of honest connections. Will you, Lila, let me be part of your life, not just as a partner in this venture, but as someone who cherishes you for exactly who you are?" A hush fell over the crowd as Lila considered his words. Then, with a smile that radiated both warmth and determination, she responded, "Only if we remain equals, sharing not just the triumphs, but also the struggles, the imperfections and the joys, because that's what love is all about." In that moment, as the crowd erupted into applause and the night sky was lit by a constellation of hope and possibility, Gavin gently slipped a ring onto her finger, a simple band that symbolized not just commitment, but the promise of a future built on shared values and mutual respect. Their journey, marked by moments of vulnerability, transformation, and unwavering support, became a living testament to the power of genuine human connection. The once disparate worlds of corporate ambition and small-town simplicity had converged to create a partnership that transcended all expectations. Gavin and Lila continued to work side by side, not only in the repair shop that had brought them together, but also in reshaping the broader narrative of their lives. Their story, woven from the threads of chance encounters, hard-fought battles, and quiet moments of understanding, resonated deeply with everyone who heard it. A reminder that sometimes the most unlikely meetings can lead to the most extraordinary changes. In the end, as the seasons shifted and the coastal winds carried whispers of change across the dunes, Gavin and Lila stood together on the porch of Anderson Auto Repair. The lights of the small town twinkled in the distance, and the steady sound of the ocean formed a timeless backdrop to their shared future. "We've got a long road ahead," Gavin said softly, "but I wouldn't want to travel it with anyone else." Lila's smile was gentle and resolute. "Neither would I, Gavin. Neither would I." Thus, from the spark of a chance encounter over a flat tire, a story of love, redemption, and unwavering integrity had taken root. One that would inspire countless others to believe that even in the simplest moments, destiny might be waiting to change everything. And as they embraced the uncertain yet promising future ahead, they knew that together they could overcome any obstacle, forging a legacy of trust, compassion, and the unyielding power of the human spirit. In this way, the coastal highway, the humble repair shop, and the bustling city that once seemed so far apart came together in a narrative that was as heartwarming as it was transformative. A story where a man and a woman, so different in background yet united in their quest for truth, found in each other the strength to build a life defined not by appearances or material wealth, but by the richness of their shared humanity.